Aloha, everybody. My name is Amanda Kaahanui, and I am a parent of a child with a disability, and I work for SPIN, the Special Parent Information Network. We are a state agency, Department of Health, that supports families who have kids birth to 22, entering into either early intervention or getting services through special education or 504 plans. And we help folks navigate. One of my favorite things to do is help families try to figure out how to work through the systems for their best solutions for their families. So today we are going to be talking about how to work with families. I'm a parent, so I'm going to give you some parent perspective, share a few stories today, and hopefully just help you to see that families are engageable, and sometimes we just need to step back from that, from certain things, and take a bigger look at the picture. So let's go ahead and get rolling. So our workshop today is be engaging with parents to support them in their ohana. There we go. And our first screen here is just to remind you to be gentle. Be gentle with folks because, as you know, they're all going through a lot of stress right now. You folks are on Maui, and as providers, you also have a lot of stress in your life. And when we're stressed out, we behave irrationally. We don't mean to be. We often just become very self-centered or very selfish because we're trying to meet the needs of our family or ourselves. And the other day when I was driving home, I had a snappy moment with my husband. I felt really bad. I was on the phone with him, on hands free, and I was driving, and I couldn't get in. Nobody would let me in. I'm like, bah! And I turned left instead, and trying to do a roundabout, and then there was construction. Bah! And my poor husband, who's trying to be kind on the phone, and we're talking about, like, are you going to go to Costco or stop at Safeway? And I just blew a lid, and I snapped at him, and I didn't mean to, but I was stressed in the moment. And sometimes we think, like, oh, it's just travel stress, or it's just this kind of stress, but our bodies don't know the difference between being chased by a lion or sitting in traffic. Really, the stress response that we have is the same. So he actually texted me and said, I hope that your afternoon commute goes better. And then I was able to text him at a stoplight and say, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to snap at you. But that's where stress can be. And so when we're working with families, they may take their stress out on you. But we want you to remember that it's probably not you, that it's just their circumstances, and we're trying to help them through that. So one of the things that you could do is, with the family, is teach them how to do some mindful breathing, just a 1-minute exercise when you sit down together before you start, and you could do some box breathing. 4 in, hold it for 4, 4 out, hold it for 4. Or you could do physiologic breathing, where you take a deep breath in, take another sip, breathe it all the way out, hold it before you bring it back in. Those actually do physically help calm us down. It slows our heart rate. It kind of puts us in a better space. Now, even if you can't get the family to do that with you, you could sit in your car before you walk up to that door and just do some breathing for yourself. Get to your why of why you're there, especially if you've had a difficult family or a difficult meeting, or it was stressful for any different reason. Before you get to the next family, just sit in your car and do your own mindful breathing. That can help you connect to why you're doing this. Think about the next family, let the past meeting stress go, and reset yourself. Now, our little shameless plug here is that we do a conference annually, and we have had this really fantastic guy named Dr. Matthew Wappett come and he did 2 presentations for us about stress and how to counteract them. How to move from the stress response into a relaxation response. So be sure to check out that link, or you can go to our website at Spin Conference and find him. If you download the PDFs are clickable links, and you can get there easily. And if you have questions, please do just type them into the chat, and Jacob is our moderator, and he will interrupt me. It's not a problem if you have a question to ask, okay? Or if you have a scenario and you want to talk about it, we can do that too. Our next one here is, you guys are providers. You're the expert. So it's okay to be that expert. And we want you to think about, when you're working with that family, how you're going to connect them to the next sort of resources that they need, and what steps that they need to get there. I had a doctor's appointment this week, and there was a lot of things that we were talking about, medications and treatment plans, and all kinds of things. "Oh, this hurts, and then that hurts, and oh, my elbow." And so we are talking about all these things, and then I got home, and my husband's like, "How'd the appointment go? What'd you talk about?" And I was like, I think it was okay." And I forgot a lot of the things that she talked to me about. I forgot medications that we talked about, like, looking into. I forgot about some of the exercises she told me, uh, just because it's overwhelming in that moment. You're trying to absorb it all. So if you can, maybe think about writing out a plan for a family. If you've got a plan, we need you to do this, this, and this, then write it out and then give it to them and let them know here's the steps so they can check off that list. It's always so fulfilling to have a list and be able to check off items that you've done. And so just as you guys are helping families, it's not only that you're there as that expert, but you're also there to coach them, to mentor them, or guiding them. And you're also a cheering section for them as their expert. Sometimes we just need someone in our corner to let us know that we're doing the best that we can at the moment. We also want to remind you to be honest. And this is not saying that anybody is lying, right? This is just sometimes admitting that we don't know the answer to something. And that's okay too. Sometimes we put ourselves on a pedestal, and sometimes families will put us on a pedestal that we know everything. I don't know everything about education. I've been working with SPIN for 9 years now. I work for Department of Health. I don't know everything about them. When I worked as a life lesson, I worked at the zoo for 16 years. I was the head instructor, and we did twilight tours every Friday night and Saturday night. And I remember, and it's stuck with me all of these years. This really was a life lesson. I was doing a tour, and someone, if the stars are out, someone said, "What's that?" And I'd use my phone to use that little app and look up in the sky and say, "Oh, that's Mars and Jupiter." And then the next week comes along, and someone and it, always asks, what do you think those are in the sky? And I said, "Oh, that's Mars and Jupiter." And I kept going. I kept walking on to the elephants or wherever we were going. But there was somebody in my audience that had their own phone, and they looked up into the sky and they said, "No, that's Jupiter and Saturn." And because I had got it wrong, for something that I didn't really know about. I'm not an astronomer. He heckled me actually for the entire tour. So did I really know all those things about elephants? And I saw him on his phone, like, fact checked me for the things that I was saying about the animals, which I knew a lot about. But because I didn't say, "I don't know, but let's get the phone out and look," or "while we're walking to the next exhibit, we'll get the phone out and look," that would have been a better answer for everybody. "I don't know. Let's find out together." And so when you're working with families, if you don't know, it's okay to say you don't know. "I don't know the answer to that, but I'll find out for you and I'll get back to you." And then actually do get back to them. And then be transparent in your answers with them. If you don't know, I would much rather have someone tell me, "I don't know the answer to that," because I don't expect you to be a human computer. I don't expect you to be all end all of all the information out there. So we're all learning together. We're lifelong learners together, and we just have to own up if we say something that we didn't mean. If you do make a mistake, if you said something that wasn't correct, just own up. Say, I'm sorry. What I told you before wasn't right. Here's the correct information," and then we move on. It's a lesson that we often teach kids, right? Like, say you're sorry, say you made a mistake, and then get over it. But we as adults sometimes have a hard time doing that, and especially when we're in a position of being that expert or being an authority. All right, so we also want to remind you guys that whatever you're doing for the family at the moment that you're there is just one piece of their life puzzle. Even if you are a case manager, managing a lot of things, you're not managing everything in their life. And your piece that you're there helping them with might not be a priority for them at the time that you're there. So we want you to remember that as well. Think about that with Maslow's hierarchy, right, of needs. It's it's physiological, for folks on Maui, it's food and shelter and clean air and clean water. And then it's personal security and employment and resources. And then it's family and friends and connection. And then it's, self-esteem. And then it's being the best you can. But if they don't have that first layer of comfort, whatever you might be offering them is not where they're at right now. And that's okay. But we just need to remember that sometimes when we're trying to help families, they may not need the help that we're offering at the moment, and because they could be thinking about other things. We work a lot with families in the education system, and I've also heard from doctors or other therapists, like they're not listening, they're not paying attention, they're being non-compliant. And it's not that they're being non-compliant, but they're maybe worried about something different, right? Maybe it's nothing to do with their current situation or family, but maybe someone on the mainland. My mom lives on the mainland and she's in the hospital. That's going to really affect me, and I'm not going to be a very good participant in the meeting, even though we're trying to focus on this certain set of things. So just be kind. I know you guys are, but just as that reminder that we as families have lots of facets, and whatever you're working on with them might not be what's the most concerning to them at that moment. We also want you to remember to be approachable. So we want families to look forward to your call or look forward to your visit. We don't want them to be like, oh, that person is coming over today, because maybe they feel like whatever it is that you're offering is they're not ready for, or they're not focused on. But we want you to be their partner with them, and so that they know that, hey, Amanda's coming today, and even though I don't care about education stuff right now, maybe she can help connect me with something in health, and I can do that as I can. We also want to remind folks to be humble. So I said, you are the expert. We are the expert. We know what we know, but we don't want to put ourselves so high on that pedestal that we are unapproachable. I've worked with folks in the past that I didn't really want to work with them because they've kind of lorded over me, maybe their education. They had a better education than I had. They worked in this field for 20 years, and what do I know? I just started as a parent. I didn't feel comfortable talking with folks like that because I felt like we were on different levels of connection. I want to be able to connect with my providers. I've had people in our lives. My son is 20. We've had lots of different people because he's had lots of different things going on, and we still have a lot of connections with many of them. We have Thanksgivings together, we have picnics together, we go to the beach together, we get together for girls' night, because they became more than just that provider, because they were approachable and they were also humble, realizing that they are lifelong learners just like me. Any questions right now in the chat? Jacob, I'll pause for a moment. I'm kind of flying through. I know we're conscious of time, but we just want to make sure that nobody has questions. Are we okay?
Yeah, nothing at the moment.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, our next one here is to be creative. Now, I worked at the zoo for 16 years. It's been for 9 years now. And sometimes we get stuck in a been there, tried that mindset, especially if you've been somewhere for a while. And then someone new comes in and they're like, hey, let's try this. And it's so easy to say, I've been there, done that, tried it, didn't work. And there could have been a lot of reasons why that idea didn't work. It could have been people. Sometimes people can be barriers. And so your idea didn't work because there was a person there. Maybe that person is gone. It could have not worked because of the infrastructure that was in place, but maybe something has changed, or we can do tweaking. So when you bring ideas, or you ask someone else to bring an idea, or you ask a family to bring in an idea, and you've tried it and it didn't work, try not to shut them down right away and say, that didn't work. Think about how it might be reworked, Or think about ask them if they have more ideas on how that could get done, because once you tried it like this and it didn't work, but how could we make it happen if we tried it a different way? So being creative, thinking outside the box, and allowing for old ideas to resurface sometimes and come back up again. um, Thinking about joining an online forum or a learning community is a great way to get different perspectives. We are the provider, we are that expert, but we again are lifelong learners. So maybe someone else has an idea or a situation or something that can be really beneficial. So think about how you can create a community for yourself to be learning and to be sharing ideas that you can then share back with families. Some of the things that we like to try and that we've worked for our family is we've tried mind mapping. And sometimes mind mapping, we just get crazy ideas on the paper and we know we're never going to try that idea or it's too far fetched. But just getting it out on paper sometimes can then spark another idea. And that can spark another idea, and that might lead to a solution. So, mind mapping is a great way just to get all of your thoughts and ideas out on paper, and then you can start picking out ones that might work for you. Care mapping is another one. Has anybody here ever heard of care mapping before? Anybody done that? If you have, let us know in the chat. But care mapping is a great way to figure out, and you can use this with a child, you can use this with a family, you can use it for your elders. It's a great way to see what services we have now, like, and the whole person. So if I'm doing it for my kiddo, I've got school stuff, I've got doctor stuff, I've got insurance, I've got support groups, I've got training, I've got friends and family, I've got different areas of my life, and I'm going to make little bubbles for those areas, and then I'm going to start thinking who's in there, what kind of technology I'm using, what kind of do I have, transportation, and then I can also see where I have gaps. So I might see, oh, I've got uncle can take my kid to school here, and my husband can take him here. There might be overlap. Or I don't have any transportation, and that's an issue. So I've got to figure out how to get that done. So care mapping is a great way to work with the family and see what we have in place already and what might be duplicated and what might be needed. It's really enlightening, I think, for providers and for the families because again, you're going in there probably for one aspect of their life, and for you to see the other pieces that the family is going through or dealing with, or and finding those pukas that you can connect them to resources. It's just a really nice way to see the whole family. And if you want to watch a video on care mapping, there's a link here that you can go to our Spin Conference website. And I also put an infographic in our handout section. So if you go back to mine, you'll see all the handouts, including this PDF, and you can find an infographic about care mapping there. Let's see. The other thing that I wanted to, and another ideas we've heard from some professionals is they get like a 15-minute meeting on Monday or Thursday or whatever, and it's short and it's sweet, and we just like here's the problem, here's the issue, here's the concern, here's I'm confounded, and then throw that question out to your whole team and then create a Jamboard or something that people can contribute to solutions on that. And that's a great way of sharing ideas and resources because someone else may have 20 years of experience and you've just started, but you don't work with them all the time. How are you going to pick that brain? How are you going to get that knowledge? These little 15-minute Jamboards are a great way to do that. And for families, maybe consider connecting them to other families. Uh, Host a lunch, host a barbecue somewhere, host a play date at a park for kids to get together. But it's a great way for families to feel like they're not alone because we're often isolated, that they get support from other families, they get new ideas from other families. Uh, our When my son was very young, he had a lot of medical stuff, but he was also deaf, and he wears hearing aids, but he's a deaf child. And I connected with a national group called Hands and Voices, and I went to a conference sponsored by my early intervention program, and I met other parents. Really was the first time I had met deaf adults and parents of deaf or hard of hearing kids. I didn't have anybody that was deaf in my family. I didn't have any friends in my circle that had a kid with even with a disability, much less deafness. And meeting this community of people out there raising up a child with deaf or hearing loss, I just didn't feel alone anymore, and I knew that I had a forum that I could ask questions about. I knew that there was families that were above me, their kids were older, and they were making it, and they were doing it, and as I worked myself through, as my kids getting older, then I enjoyed becoming a mentor to families that were just starting out on their journey, so it's a way to pay back and pay it forward as well. So consider trying to get families together. It's just a beautiful way to connect families for support, for mentorship, and for community. It really was probably the best thing that happened to me as a young parent is connecting to other families. Okay, our next one here is to be prepared. Now, I know that you guys are prepared when you go to meetings. You've got all your forms and you've got your laptop and you've got your hotspot ready and you're ready for that meeting in a different way. In that, like, this is my agenda, this is what we're going to do, and I'm prepared. I'm ready for it. But what I'm talking about being prepared is being prepared for sometimes families that might have a different idea of the plan than you. And there's a lot of reasons why that plan could be different. Sometimes parents get information from others. They don't know enough about the topic. We're all on, WebMDs doing those internet searches. We get family history, or families give us, I got a lot of advice from my family members who didn't know anything about disability or deafness, but they saw a movie about it somewhere and then wanted to share, but they're not living it. So sometimes that can be wrong information or not right for me information. Sometimes we get other providers that give us information, and we go, oh, okay, because you're the expert, I trust you, and that's what I'm going to believe or think that now I have to do that. You might come in and have a different perspective or a different pathway, and it's a different viewpoint. So um, it's not wrong, it's just different from yours. So be prepared for that. But what we want you to think about is the why. Why is that different? If you're going in to work with a family and you've got a plan of action and you're talking with them and maybe they seem resistant, or even they say, like, well, what about this? Or I want to do that. Take a step back, take a moment, and try to get to the why of why they're asking for something, or saying something about the next steps or plan. When I think about this problem, sometimes this not meeting on the same level, I think about families in school, because we work with a lot of school kids who want speech therapy for their kids. So I've got a deaf kid, right? If I go into my IEP meeting with the school and I say, I want 1 hour of pull out speech every day for my child, and the school is going to say no. Sometimes they say it nicely, sometimes it's just a no. We're not going to do that. No, we can't do that. And then I will get bristly, like, you're not listening to me. You're not doing what I'm asking you to do. This is the thing that's really important for my kid right now. And the school might be saying, yeah, but do you want them to lose an hour of academics every day? Do you want them to lose an hour of socialization every day? No, but I still think it's important. Instead of fighting about why I can't have 1 hour of speech therapy for my kid every day, better than to ask why I want that speech therapy. Why do you want 1 hour every day? And what you might hear then from me is, I'm afraid that my kid's not going to communicate. I'm afraid that my kid's going to get picked on or bullied at school because he talks different than other kids. I'm afraid that my kid isn't going to graduate because he can't express the way that people expect him to do. I'm afraid he's not going to get a job. I'm afraid he's not going to get married. I'm afraid. That's the common denomination here. I'm afraid or I'm worried about something to do with this, and the only thing I can think of is an hour of a speech pull out every day. So if you can get to that why, Then we can get to solutions. Then we can, then the school can come back to me and say, well, Amanda, 1 hour, he's going to miss academics, he's going to miss socialization. We realize communication is important, but that's not going to happen in the speech room because, boy, my kid could repeat those words in the speech room, but put him in a classroom and have him say that word in a sentence or explain something, he gets excited and he starts to, his words get really hard to understand. And so what I he needed was to have maybe the speech push into the classroom to help the kids understand that tapping him on the shoulder and looking him in the eyes to make sure he's looking at them when they're talking is good communication skills, making sure he knew how to make himself be a little more understood how to use technology in those situations. So there was a lot better options than just 1 hour of speech therapy, which probably would have not been very productive. So get to that why. Be prepared for families to not be on your page. And if they're on a different page, why is that happening? Okay. I think I got that one. Yep. Okay. Being proactive. So being proactive on this slide for me is also about preparing the families for those next tasks. So my example earlier of going to the doctor, if she'd have given me something or if I had taken a journal and written down what my next tasks were, when I needed to get them done by, who I needed to call, here are the numbers. If I had something written down, that probably would have been a better follow through for me. Because then if I've got a provider coming and we've met 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or a month ago, and you said, here, Amanda, do these things. We talked about them, but you know, 3 weeks have gone by and you're going to be coming like tomorrow and I haven't done anything because I forgot what they all were. If I've got something in writing, then I have something I can refer back to. I can check off that list. You can also maybe set a reminder in your phone to just do a check-in with me. So you're maybe not going to see me but once a month or once every 2 weeks, but maybe once a month or once a week on Tuesdays at 2:15 when I'm on a break, then you're just going to call and say, hey, did you have any problems connecting with that resource? Hey, did you fill out that form? Was there any challenges that you needed to get that done? That way, when you get to that next meeting, they've completed their part. You are ready to move on to the next steps. And we always want to just remind folks to ask families how they like to be communicated, when they like to be communicated, how often, because that's going to just create a better partnership. If you're calling them every week and they're like, oh my God, Jim Andrew just keeps calling me every week, it's killing me. If you ask me, when do you want me to communicate with you? And I might say every 2 weeks would be great because that'll give me time. Okay, every 2 weeks we're gonna have a check-in, and then we'll see you once a month. So just asking families can go a long way into having them feel comfortable. And then you can always check in, hey, is this enough time for you? Do I need to check in more often? Or is email really the best way to communicate with you? Would you prefer a text? Because we're a texting society nowadays. Some people prefer to meet virtually. Some people are okay meeting in person. So really just finding out what their preferences are and making a little note so that everybody is a little more comfortable. And there's also one more thing to share with you about this when we're working with families and trying to move them along and being proactive with them is to remind families that this is not permanent. And I heard something from a parent online, and she was doing a present. She was doing like a reel or something on Facebook, and what she said was really profound to me. She said, "Think about the words right now." And I think when I saw that post, I think I probably cried a little bit because the feeling of right now is this is not permanent. And I use it a lot for myself. I use it when I'm talking to families. Sometimes families call spin and they're just in a mode of ah. And so being able to tell families like, okay, this is happening right now. But right now means it's not permanent. It's not forever, and that we're going to get past this point. And there's a hope in that. So I understand you're feeling frustrated right now. It's going to get better. I understand that right now you're not able to da 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 da, but that doesn't mean it's going to be forever. And that realization of, yeah, it is happening to me right now, but it is not going to be forever. It is going to improve. So it's a nice little phrase that you could use with families just to provide that little bit of hope and thinking about the future and that things are going to improve. Okay. Um, when we're thinking about families, we're thinking about partnering, right? When we think about engagement with families, it's a different level of involvement. We used to hear parent involvement, like in school. If you're involved, you might be on the PTA, you might bring cupcakes to class, you might be on the field trip as a chaperone. But when you're engaged in school, you actually are engaged in decision making that happens at the school as well, and that's where we get to partnership. If we can, if schools say, like, we're going to do a parent training on da 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 da, and they do the training based on what the professional teachers think that parents need, instead of asking parents what they needed training on. So if you asked a parent, what do you need, and then you have something to start instead of assuming that you know what a family needs. So that's where we can really get to partnership in going back and forth, and we're building these relationships with them, as you guys know, one step at a time. Now, empathy and compassion, I always get them in my mind a little bit confused because they are, sort of hand in hand. So when we're thinking about empathy, empathy is our feeling of awareness towards other people's emotions and an attempt to understand how they feel. So I'm on Oahu. I'm not on Maui. When I see the news, I'm pointing to my television. When I see what's happening in Maui, I have empathy. I'm trying to understand how this family who has a special needs child is trying to cope with all of the stresses. I'm trying to understand that. I'm being empathetic, right? So, but I don't want to let that stress of somebody, especially if you're working with them in person, to turn off your responses to their deeper emotions. So I understand where you're coming from. I can empathize with your frustration and your fright and your worry, but don't let those kind of surface things turn you off to that help. And when we're talking about compassion, it's that emotional response to empathy, and it creates a desire to help. So first we're like feeling what they're feeling, we're walking in their shoes, and then we have this compassion to help them. But we don't want to give so much of yourself that you empty your own cup, because you're not just working with one family, you're working with many. So this goes back to, remember, the take some deep breaths. You work with a family, you come out of that meeting, and you just might be, and they may have been the best family, but there might have been a lot of emotions. There could have been crying, there could have been screaming, there could have been tantrums, or just dealing with gut wrenching angst, and how that can make us feel, because we have empathy and we have compassion. But we've got to get to that next family, and they don't need us in a really low spot. They need us to come back in and be the person that they need for us right now. So when you're working with these families, yes, we're empathetic, yes, we're compassionate, but don't empty your cup. If you need a break, tell somebody that you need a break. If you need to not see a family for a week, I let them know. I need a break, or I need a little bit of time. Families will understand that, and they'll appreciate you coming back to them a little stronger, with your cup a little more full, than if you've just completely worn yourself down to nothing, because you're really not going to help them, and the families will see that you're empty in yourself, and then you think, well, how can you help me? You can't even help yourself, right? So help ourselves first, then we're able to help families a little bit better. Let's see on my slide. Oh, my being realistic on your expectations of families. We are going through this project called reframing, and it was really helpful to us to think about reframing our messaging to folks, not based on stereotypes. Often we hear, oh, Micronesian families don't engage at the school level. That's not true. Some do. There is often a bigger belief of, we let the teachers do the teacher thing and I don't want to interfere, but we have workarounds around that. And so I don't want to turn myself off to helping somebody because I have a stereotype of Micronesians don't engage. And I'm just using that as an example because we hear that a lot. And then that becomes sort of this truth when it may not be a truth, or it may not be true for that family. We sometimes get really frustrated when families aren't doing what we want them to do. Or we have a plan for them. We say, this is the plan. This is what's going to get you back on your feet, or this is what's going to get the help that you are requesting. And then they don't do it. And then it feels like that family is non-compliant. We hear that in the medical world a lot. This family is non-compliant. And I think a lot of times it's because whatever it is that is being offered to that family is not important to them at that moment. It's not relevant to them at that moment, or it's not working for them at that moment right now. That doesn't mean it isn't going to be helpful later on. But right now, I've got a different priority than what you're telling me to do. So it can be really frustrating. They're not doing what I'm telling them to do. They're non-compliant. But think about, is your piece of their life puzzle their top priority right now? Is something else their top priority and yours is kind of down lower? Doesn't mean that you cannot help them or be there for them or connect them. It just means that we're on maybe a different wavelength or a different road. And they will come back to you if you continue to reach out, continue to be that partner, continue to offer resources. They'll come back to you when the time is right for them. And just remember that stress, right? Families are stressed out. They just may say things or do things. And again, that can feel non-compliant, but they just could be overwhelmed and stressed and just can't at that moment. So trying to be their partner, getting down to that why, working with them for what they need. Sometimes families don't know what they need. I don't know what I don't know. And that can be difficult as well. Okay, my last slide, I'm moving right along here. My last slide here is to be supportive, and I know all of you guys are very supportive, so we want to just think about other ways we're being supportive to families. So if you've got that family that you feel non-compliant, or they're very challenging, or you just feel like you're not getting through to them, you might just want to consider a heart-to-heart and listen and try and find the why. Why is it difficult for you right now? What do you feel is a barrier for you moving forward? What are you worried about? Because I may not know what I need. I may not know what I want, but I know what I'm afraid of. I know what I'm worried about right now. I can tell you those things, even if I can't tell you what the solutions or what I think the solutions might be for my family. I know I don't have a place to go. I don't know where my next doctor's appointment is going to be. I don't know how I'm going to get a job or get to that job. Those things might be my priority, and you come in and you're talking about school. And I just can't even deal with that right now. So finding out their why can really help support them in what they need at that moment. Also, just want to remind you that unless you are the very first person from an agency who's ever met with a family ever, they have dealt with other professionals, other people from other agencies or organizations. You're probably not the first one. And they could have had a bad experience. They could have had a really bad experience, and it just puts that bad taste, and they're defensive. They come to the door just not open and receptive to you. So try to separate maybe what's happened in the past with other folks. If they're a little cold-shouldered to you, maybe just finding out if they did have a not so great experience in the past, and then let them know that you're there for them and that you're going to do everything you can to have this be a good experience. That will give them a little more hope. They might still be really, on the fence or a little standoffish, but as you move forward and are getting to their why and giving them some grace for their stress, they're going to see that you are the partner that they need right now, and they are going to welcome you in. And my last little bit here is about resources. So, of course, we're all about sharing resources. SPIN is information and resource. That's our primary goal for families. But we want to make sure that the resources that we're sharing with families are pertinent for the moment and that they're not too much. I can remember my son was about 2. We had gone to a genetics clinic, and when we were done with the appointment and they'd done all their things, and they said, "Well, what do you need from us?" And I said, "I'd really like some resources to learn more about my son's diagnosis." And they said, "Sure, I'll be right back." And they came back, and I'm not kidding, they came back with like a phone book. It was a couple of inches thick. And when it hit the table, a clunk, it felt like a door closed. I was so overwhelmed by this book of resources. And I'm sure that the provider thought that, like, here you go, here's everything you needed to know about your child's diagnosis. Oh man, it was way too much. And I probably have that book in my closet somewhere unopened. What I really needed at that moment was 1 page or 2 pages of an infographic or a 1 page flyer briefly telling me about my child's diagnosis and a couple of websites on where to get more information. Maybe even a connection to another parent. If you know somebody who's in a similar situation, connecting them with that parent can really be helpful because they're going to share in resources in it as well. So if you're looking for infographics, Spin has a lot of them. That's something that we've been working on the past few years, and their health and education and other things, stress, bullying. So be sure to check out our infographics page on our website and print them out and share them with families or point families in that direction. And my last message to you guys is just to be that shining beacon of hope and encouragement to families. They really do need you in their life, even though sometimes at that moment they don't know why, but they will appreciate you. And this, excuse me, this is how you get in touch with us. Again, I'm Amanda. My partner at Spin is Susan Rocco. Some of you may have heard of her. She's been at Spin for almost 30 years now. We have 2 websites and we have a warm line, so someone's always in the office. Okay, so I'm going to stop share. There we go. And see if we have any questions or if anybody has scenarios. Sometimes there's a scenario like, Amanda, I got this family. we can brainstorm a little bit, or if you guys are all pal, we can say thank you so much and you have a little break before your next session. Any questions?
We have a couple of comments in the chat from Pulani. Um, she's just thinking. She said, "Mahalo, Amanda, for sharing your perspective," and she expressed how helpful it is to hear this information. She also mentioned, I believe this is when you're talking about being supportive of the family. That I think she's saying that one of the things she does is meeting the family where they at in the moment.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I also had shared the link to your website in the chat as well for anybody who would like to access it from right there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Sometimes meeting the family where they're at is also meeting them at a park or McDonald's or somewhere like that. It doesn't always have to be in the home. I used to get, like, I want you to come over. And it wasn't because I didn't want to see them, but it was because I had a pile of dishes in the sink and the beds weren't made and there was dust bunnies in the corner and I was embarrassed, for my house. Or maybe I've got a bunch of people over and it's noisy, or maybe I've got someone in my family that I don't need to, want saying stuff. So sometimes if you get resistance, it could be just that meeting location. Like, hey, we want to meet in a park. Then the kids can play and we can talk story. Do you want to meet at a coffee shop? So sometimes meeting families where they're at is not always in their home. Huh. Excellent. Anything else? Does anybody want to share where they are? Darlene, I see you there. Thank you for having your camera on. Would you mind sharing where you're from? Or what organization you're from? I'm just curious. I'm so excited. My son's name is Ikaika, so it was really easy to remember Ho'o Ikaika. I'm really excited about this group. Oh, you're on mute. Drink. Shots for Darlene. You're on mute. You can press your
Can you
space
hear me
bar
now?
down and yeah,
Okay,
awesome.
okay. I'm actually coming in from Maui. I work for Maui Family Support Services. I work with a lot of childcare providers, a lot of people who open their home to childcare, like grandmas and aunties, even non-relatives. And I also help them through the childcare providers to find resources in the community or just somebody to talk to because they are dealing with somebody else's child, some other
Mhm,
family struggles. So it's a very lonely job when you do childcare in your home. So you
mhm,
need that person to count on, call, to have resources, have an understanding ear, and a lot of what you said makes sense. It's not an easy thing uh, to try to be the helpful person, or they
mhm,
see you as the person, as the quote unquote expert, which I'm not,
mhm,
and but that's how they see you, and being humble about it, like you said. Um, Gives them more to say. They want to say more, and I appreciate that because then it gets me to understand um, who I can connect them to, um, who can be their expert also. Gives them a chance to trust me and then understand that there are other people in the community to trust also.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I heard everything you said and it makes total sense. It's not an easy task. I mean, you make it sound easy, but it's not
It's
an easy.
easy to type those bullets up and talk about it a little bit, but the going out and being in people's being in their homes and connecting with people and you're getting this family has this set of
Yeah,
circumstances, this family has this, and you really do have to pivot yourself and be more than just the support for that one family. You have
yeah,
to be support to all of those families.
yeah,
Yeah. And that's where keeping your cup full, at least half full,
yeah,
and not letting it run down because they need you
yeah,
and your family needs you too.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing. Appreciate it.
You're
We got one quick question in the chat, asking
Okay.
if you will be able to share your PowerPoint after this.
Yeah. So I put a PDF on the Sked app. So if you go back to my profile page, I guess it'll be there. And you can probably reach out to Imua or Ho'o Ikaika and my email. I can put my email in the chat. I can do that. If you like a copy directly, um, you can email me. That's probably the best way. So put spin@doh.hawaii.gov. There you go. And I'm happy to send you the PowerPoint or the PDF. They usually go a little easier through the through the mail. PowerPoints get big sometimes. Thanks. Anybody else? Jamie, you want to share where you're from? You feel comfortable? I don't want
I'm
to put anybody on the spot.
I'm from Maui Family Support Services. I actually work with families that have a referral base from like CWS and BCM.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's kind of rough, and sometimes we feel like we kind of mediate. We're stuck in the battle between mom and dad and arguing and stuff like that. So at
Yeah.
times, yeah, it can be rough, but I still enjoy what I do, and I do take time for wellness. Separate myself from work and just focus on family and reboot our buttons, go and take time away.
Yeah. And sometimes just the awareness of stress. We had that Dr. Wampet came and did this presentation for us in the fall and then this past spring. And for Susan and myself, we both realized like I didn't really realize how like the traffic was causing stress for me. Even the traffic on the way home, and I'm home and I'm still like frustrated, and how we can change our own stress because that changes how we relate to our family and our friends and our work, and it helps with our bodies. I just didn't realize how much constant stress that we were in. And so maybe just helping families also realize, like, I know, and we say that I'm stressed out, but do we really know what that means? Like, physiologically, what stress can do to our bodies, and emotionally and mentally, like being in this very self protective, fight or flight mode can make us really grumpy and angry, and we're taking it on people that we don't mean to. So just maybe trying to bring the awareness of stress back to them, and then like, let's do a 1 minute. And they may be like, oh, this is so stupid, but just that 1 minute, even if you're doing it there in front of them, that's going to reduce your stress levels with them, and they might see that that's reduced, and they might try it when you're not there. You never know. And please do think of SPIN as a resource for you folks. If you're working with families who have kids that might have a disability or need to be evaluated for disability, we can help families navigate that process too. Okay, anybody else? I say Brandy or Marcial or Chanel. Did you want to share where you're from?
Yeah, I'll share. I'm Pualini, and I'm with Child and Family Service Neighborhood Place of Wailuku and the Family Success Coach. And so I'm really grateful, Amanda, for your presentation. And it was I just liked everything that you had to say. And so,
Thank you.
yeah. And you can say hello to Susan for me.
I will.
I haven't seen her for a long while.
Pualini. She's still kicking around.
Yes.
And I'm always like, don't leave.
Even
She just
Stephen, I
has so
saw him
much
on
information.
earlier. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you, Jacob, for helping here. Thank you.
Great moderator. Thanks, Jacob. Thank you, Pualini, for sharing.
I am Chanel Lofalemana, and I'm actually on the island of Molokai, and I work for MPs Hi'ile. We do home visiting, so some of the ideas that you suggested are some of the things that I can see myself implementing into helping our families, one, importantly, to engage, but also when they are in time of crisis or have concerns about their child development, just kind of looking at in a different type of lens to make the parents be able to understand, and how I can support them, as well as try to provide them with the resources that we have on island. So just seeing your PowerPoint slide really opened me up to kind of see how I can do it in a home visiting setting. Definitely different ideas of just trying to engage the families that I service on the island.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Yeah, we had a lot of providers. My son had early intervention, of course, but then just a lot of other folks that would come and visit, and everybody has sort of their slice, and they always think that's the most important slice. And for you, it is. That's your job, and you're there with that family. But sometimes for that family, they could be on a completely different, not even a slice of pie. They're on a slice of cake, or they're on a donut. So it really is just kind of getting to that why, getting to what the family needs at that moment. Because if you can help them through that crisis moment, they're going to be on that next step and getting onto the pathway that you're there to help them for. Thank you, Chanel. Chanel, did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Awesome. Okay. And our last one here was Brandy. Did you want to share, Brandy? It's okay if you don't. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. We're a small group, and it's just nice to hear from you folks. Good thing too is just to kind of see each other, hear each other, like, oh, I might be able to make a connection there. Well, thank you guys so much for coming to the presentation today. I'm really happy to hear that you picked up maybe some tips there. Please know that SPIN is also a resource for you. So just because we provide support for families, doesn't mean that we don't provide support to the professionals that are working with those families. So consider the SPIN conference. It's in April, on April 6th. We do have scholarships for families. So if you know families who might benefit from the SPIN conference, and we have a resource fair there as well. So, so just kind of keep us in mind, keep our number in mind. Or if you've got a family that's just like, I don't know what to do, give us a call, and we just might be able to talk story with you and think about different perspectives. Or and sometimes it's just nice to sort of get it off your chest. This family. We get it, because I've been that family before. We've all been there at some point in our lives. So so please do keep us in mind as a resource for you too. Okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we will hopefully connect you again in the future. Aloha.